Some mesh chair problems you can live with, but others will make you want to punch a hole through your chair. My favorite chair is an all-mesh office chair, but the truth is they aren't for everyone. Don't buy a mesh office chair until you watch this video. One problem that is not exclusive to either cheap or expensive mesh chairs is loose or weak mesh. The makeup of mesh chairs requires a hard frame to hold the mesh in place. And the real issue comes in when the mesh is too loose, making you sink through it and hit the hard frame. Any chair where you can feel the frame will be uncomfortable immediately. I recommend checking reviews and make sure that the chair you're looking to purchase has a good return policy, because this is a problem that you cannot live with. Now on the flip side, having mesh that is too tight or firm will also be a problem. The firm experience you get on the Aeron is one of the main reasons it's such a polarizing chair. Personally, I prefer a mesh chair that sides on being too firm rather than too loose. Sinking through a chair and getting no support makes a chair unsittable. But a seat or back that is too firm is still going to work for most people if you take some breaks during the day. If I had to pick a chair that hits the perfect balance of mesh tightness, it would be the Herman Cosm. Just be ready to pay for it. Mesh upholstery is typically going to be more coarse than leather or fabric. So if you wear a lot of shorts and short sleeves, consider the fact that some kinds of mesh can be pretty abrasive to your skin. Certain mesh headrests will not feel great against your neck, and possibly will catch and pull on your hair. The abrasion can also have a cheese grater effect on your soft clothing. I found this out firsthand a while back, discovering a layer of jeans under the seat of my Aeron. This is another problem that you can find in both cheap and expensive mesh chairs. So check out reviews and see what people are saying about the softness of the mesh. No matter what type of mesh material a chair has, they're all difficult to clean. Padded mesh is where crumbs go to die. They fall through the top layer of the mesh and get caught in the padding, making them very difficult to vacuum out. It's also not easy getting something like chocolate out of a more abrasive mesh like you see here. With all the tiny crevices, there's too many places for food or dirt to hide. You definitely want to stay away from using paper products to clean because they only leave a worse mess. The best cleaning solution is alternating between a soft, wet cloth and a vacuum. Keeping your area clean and not eating in your chair is the only real solution. Mesh chairs need a hard frame to hold the mesh in place, and certain mesh chairs make it almost impossible to not hit this frame. The Hayworth Fairy is an example of a chair where unless I sit perfectly centered, I find myself hitting the hard backrest frame. The Aeron is another example of a mesh chair where you need to stay centered or else the seat frame will uncomfortably contact your body. Often the solution to this problem is simply making sure you are sitting in a chair that fits you properly. With a chair like the Fairy, there isn't many options other than testing to see if it'll fit you. With the Aeron, the answer is purchasing the correct size chair for your body. The seat's front edge is always a challenge that mesh chairs try to solve. When sitting in the perfect ergonomic position, not very much of your weight should be resting on this area, but let's be honest, what percentage of the day are we sitting perfectly? The Aeron and Carmen use a waterfall edge front frame that bends down and away from your legs. This keeps the mesh tight enough to keep your legs from pushing down into the frame. Now the X-Chair and Hyken place a pad between the mesh and the frame, but these pads never seem to work. Whichever mesh chair you are considering, look carefully at this area of the seat and see how it supports your legs, if at all. My next problem is also one of the best features of mesh chairs. They offer a cooler seating experience. Body heat can easily escape through the mesh, leaving you cooler compared to sitting in a padded upholstered chair. This makes mesh chairs a bad choice for anyone who is always finding themselves cold, even in their temperature-controlled office. But this becomes a feature for those who are hot even while wearing shorts in a Wisconsin winter. Only you can decide which side of the spectrum you're on. Personally, I fall somewhere in the middle and I can switch between either style of chair and not have an issue. Probably the most subjective topic on my list is the idea of how cozy a chair is. Mesh chairs, especially with a mesh seat and backrest, are typically not going to give you that cradled feeling that a padded chair would. They feel more open because of that coolness factor, and they can feel less snug. The reason this is subjective is because not everyone will want that cradled feeling. The gesture is a good example of a padded chair that really cradles your back, and you also sink into the chair enough to get that same feeling in the seat. The closest thing I've found to a cozy mesh chair is the Steelcase Carmen. One of my top issues with mesh chairs, they limit the options for different seating positions. The Aeron, for example, is a chair I absolutely love, but the truth is I'm forced to sit in a very ergonomic position, and often I'd prefer to kick up a leg on the seat and relax. Even the more flexible framed Carmen still limits moving around in the seat. The Leap, on the other hand, with its padded seat, allows for so much more movement and different seating positions. Even chairs with only a mesh back can limit your ability to sit in different ways. Moving too far from center in a mesh back will often leave you hitting the hard frame. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but to get a really comfortable mesh office chair, you're going to have to pay a lot for it. In my mesh chair tier list, the only chairs that made it into S and A tier were well over $1,000. Comfortable chairs with a mesh seat are difficult to come by, as most of the problems on my list are focused on the seat. So if you want to get started with a mesh chair and your budget is under $1,000, I recommend looking into a chair with a mesh back only.